Hey y'all, it's me, Barb Hardly. If it ain't obvious from my accent, I'm from Tennessee, and let me tell you what, the last couple of weeks have been a real jaw-clenching existential threat to your girl. You know why? Because I'm a drag queen. I know, surprise, I'm a man. But I do feel like this is something I need to point out because all of the conservative politicians back in my home state don't seem to understand anything about nothing. They have gotten the idea that drag queens performing in front of kids is part of some elaborate plot to brainwash them and turn them gay. They keep calling it grooming, which, I don't know, looking at them, it looks like they don't know the first thing about grooming. Drag ain't a genre, it is a medium, and it can be used to tell stories. For example, did you know that in World War II, the United States Army commissioned great American songwriter Irving Berlin to craft an all-soldier revue that relied heavily on men, soldiers, getting dolled up in drag? And did you know that the Army used that show to raise money for the war effort and fight Nazis? And did you know that those soldiers, many of them homosexuals, toured the world putting on wigs and dresses to entertain traumatized troops on the front lines? Yeah, it's all true. Let's talk about This Is the Army, aka when gays and queens enlisted to serve and ended up serving. Now, before we get to story time, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Brett White, and I'm a pop culture journalist, and I've been writing a biography of Hayden Rourke for the past 3 years. You might recognize him as Dr. Bellows from I Dream of Jeannie, but way before that, he actually was in This Is the Army with his partner, Justice Addis. They were a couple, they went to the Army together, and then they stunted for Irving Berlin all across the world. Now, This Is the Army has been written about a whole lot, but it has never been written about from a queer perspective. And as a homosexual man who is currently dressed up as a gorgeous woman, I do think that I am queer enough to tell the story. So what follows is an excerpt from part of what I've written about World War II and This Is the Army. I really hope you learned something. Please check. Ooh, it's like my own drag queen story hour. Now, if you are in Tennessee and you're under 18, you might want to leave the room because I will be reading this while wearing an evening gown. I'm not going to talk in a southern accent. I'm just going to read it as myself. Hayden and Justin enlisted at the right camp at the right time. Just before Hayden showed up, General George C. Marshall of the War Department officially invited Irving Berlin to revive his World War I revue Yip Yip Yap Hank and give it a World War II twist. Soon-to-be director Ezra Stone, himself a relatively famous actor with a weekly radio show, was tasked with pulling any soldier with stupendous talent or even a hint of hamminess off of the obstacle course and onto a stage. The same went for soldiers who had previously worked as dancers and choreographers and seamsters and makeup artists and costumers and hairdressers, so you know, basically all the gays. The talents and traits that would have branded them as sissies off base were suddenly needed for the war effort. So you better believe that Ezra Stone snatched up Hayden Rourke and Justice Addis the instant their boots hit Yaphank soil. Hayden and Just were a huge get for the fledgling production, especially so early in its inception. The pair had already organized and executed their own summer stock lineups and taken big-name actors out on tour. Just was an expert stage manager, and Hayden was a gifted character actor with legitimate Broadway experience. Their first task, arrange all of the talent auditions for the incoming soldiers to fill Berlin's 300 soldier quota. This Is the Army would borrow a few numbers from the old revue, like the drag routine Ladies of the Chorus. While it wasn't remarked upon during World War II, This Is the Army was also fully integrated with gay and straight servicemen. Hayden and Just were at Upton and possibly the only gay couple in the camp. Their partnership was known to be deeper than friendship and more than professional, but it was probably more of an open secret amongst the troops. After all, Just, with his dry humor, his love of cars and baseball, and his no-frills demeanor, spent his life passing as straight. And while Hayden was gregarious, a bit ostentatious, and occasionally fey, he was also an actor and able to hide his mannerisms under the auspices of being cultured. If only his fellow soldiers knew that he was from Brooklyn and not London. All soldier shows of World War II incorporated some level of drag, but none reached the variety, skill level, and sheer amount of drag artistry on display in This Is the Army. There was, of course, the style of non-threatening GI drag that reaffirmed gender norms while nominally gender-bending, like the burly soldiers dressed as cutesy girls in frilly low-cut dresses that showed off copious amounts of chest hair that appeared in Ladies of the Chorus. Dancing in said dresses and blonde curls were acclaimed American folk singer and future Rankin-Bass snowman Private Burl Ives, as well as Private Robert Moore, who would go on to direct the seminal gay play The Boys in the Band in 1968, and in 1974, Moore would direct Rhoda's Wedding, one of the most watched television episodes of all time. Ives was straight, Moore was gay, and they both pranced for Uncle Sam. If Ladies of the Chorus featured what would be deemed mini-challenge drag on RuPaul's Drag Race, then the other numbers were main stage eleganza extravaganza. These soldiers had to play women convincingly as women's Army Corps members, hostesses, even romantic interests. The gay men who disappeared into these roles got to have their cake and eat it too. They got to serve their country by boosting morale, and they got away with flirting and dancing with another man in front of everyone with a wink to all the other gays who were reading between the lines. Then there were the real drag pros. The ones who had to pull off celebrity impressions in the most popular sketch of the show, Stage Door Canteen. Private Alan Manson played Broadway star Jane Cowell, Corporal Barcliff played Norwegian ballerina Vera Zorina, and Private Tilliston Petty played actress Lynn Fontaine. While history often remembers This Is the Army for the way it desegregated soldiers by race, the way This Is the Army erased lines between, to use the era's terms, queer and normal needs to be remembered. This changed lives as Philip Feller, son of Sergeant Peter Feller, This Is the Army technical director and friend of Hayden and Justin, as he recalled to me when I talked to him. A large number of the company were gay men who were able to be open. That was a powerful experience for all of the company, straight and gay. That humanized everybody. Black and white, straight, gay, Jewish, Catholic, atheist. This Is the Army was a unique space in both the outer culture and in the more hidebound Army culture. That was powerful for my father, who came out of a German immigrant household. It was very traditionalist, and then he gets to the Army. Already having been to the theater, he was not naive, but living and working with everybody else for the 5 years and seeing everybody's abilities and humanness, that shaped him. Wardrobe change! Well, that's about all the story that we have time for on an app like this, otherwise it might as well be a YouTube video. Thank you so much for wanting to learn about This Is the Army. If you want to learn more, go to haydenrourke.com or follow my boy account at Brett White. Make sure you're registered to vote, and why not donate to aclu.org/dragdefense. As This Is the Army teaches us, drag is essential to fighting fascism, so let's just go on and do that again. And as I always say, am I a woman? Hardly.